How's that? All right, so we'll take it from here. Okay, so Rotary, as a service organization, like I said, most people join Rotary because they want to do something that has a purpose in life beyond themselves, right? Okay, and so a few years into Rotary, I began to see that Rotary is also a leadership organization, where basically it helps people to be comfortable with leadership roles. It gives opportunity for people to be involved in leadership training. And basically, it comes kind of down to this, right? So Rotary is 46,000 clubs across the world, all right? 1.4 million Rotarians. And what Rotary says everywhere they go is that the clubs are the basis of Rotary, right? Okay, so here's the simple, like brass tacks of it all. All right. No leadership, no clubs, no Rotary. Basically, that's it. So when clubs are challenged, and every single club is challenged with, all right, well, who's going to be our emerging leader? How do we develop leadership within our club? That's why leadership, I believe, that's one of the most important things, if it's not the important thing, for Rotary right now, is the development of leadership within our organization. So, for us to actually continue, we need to have leadership. I was part of an organization that started like way back in the 90s. It sort of lost its leadership. It went dormant for a while. The leadership got basically rejuvenated and it came back to life again. So, leadership, key element, very difficult to develop that in any organization that's out there, especially a volunteer organization where, you're not getting paid to be a leader. There's no really huge compensation for being a leader, except the fact that you've done something really great for your community. Okay, so so what I've begun to see now is that Rotary is really a relationship. It's a relationship organization. I mean, it is a service organization. It is a leadership organization, but the thing that keeps Rotary together is the relationships that people have amongst their club members in their club. And if those relationships didn't exist, I mean, we can have really great leadership, but if there's nobody in a club to be a leader of, it's not going to work. So in every Rotary club, whether it's two people or 20 or 200, it's the relationships within that club that holds the club together. Like our club, for example, Rotary Club of South Hilo, we've got about 30 members in our club, right? But we probably got 15, I would say 15 to 18 members that are kind of the core group of our club. And that core group means that they show up all the time, that they're engaged, that they want to do something or do whatever it's going to take to keep the club on its mission, to keep the club functioning, to keep the club thriving and alive, right? And so that core group of people, every club has a core group like that. And so you can start from there, but it's really about creating relationships within the club. And I feel like as a leader, that's one of our primary responsibilities. So I read a lot of management stuff from or leadership stuff from Simon Sinek. So Simon Sinek's all over social media, and if you follow his stuff, he teaches this stuff. He teaches the leadership is about creating an environment where relationships and trust can grow. Think about that because I've seen clubs where it's it's super challenging in there because the environment is not a good environment for relationships to grow, right? It's very stable. Their leadership is kind of rigid. It's about, you know, before 10, 15, 20 years ago, Rotary was a lot of the fun in Rotary was giving out fines to people, making a big deal about certain things within the club. And so now, when we see the new leadership emerging in Rotary, It's about, can you come into a club and create an environment where everybody feels good, they feel safe. We're going to talk about that, so that our relationships with each other can grow. And then when those grow, then that's really the springboard you need to get out there and be really effective, within your community. And we see this, like, um, we see this in clubs that do a lot of service projects, do a lot of social projects or social events where members have a chance to connect with each other. In a lot of Rotary clubs, you'll have a lot of the senior legacy people that'll come a half an hour, 45 minutes before the meeting starts, just so that they can enjoy fellowship together. Okay, so what we've seen in clubs that are really active is that they create what Simon Sinek calls circles of safety, where basically you can come in, you can participate, you can engage with the club, but nobody's there. It's not a threatening environment. You're basically interacting with people that want to get to know you. You want to get to know them. There's some networking kind of going on, but basically you're in an environment where you feel like, wow, this is a really good thing, and that's the reason why. I mean, one of the things that I'm going to try to be pressing here going forward is to give some kind of designation to people who make the decision to be a Rotarian for life, to make a lifetime commitment to Rotary. And the reason that is that, those people and there are people at every single club who have done that. I think in our club, there's probably at least half of these people that are in our club right now, they're going to be Rotarians probably the rest of their life. And the reason that they do that is that found something that's they're passionate about, that allows them to pursue something in their life that's greater than them, and it's within a circle that is safe for them, emotionally, culturally, uh, professionally, and once people have that sense of safety, they tend to want to stay in a club. So I'll tell you, like, my wife right now, who's the president of our club. I mean, she never wanted to be president of our club, but because she's always been in a job where she's been in the background, right? She's a financial person by trade, so never really had to take the front, gavel and all that. But now that she's the president, she's really pretty unique in that she's kind of this environmentalist type person that just takes a look at how the environment in the club is going. The people are getting along, they're talking to each other, there's opportunities for them to engage. So creating that safe space for them, for people in our club to operate, that's a critical thing. Okay, and so that, what we're talking about, creating a safe place in it, that's really kind of where our aloha spirit and our sense of ohana comes from, right? Because the number one thing, if you have people either in your organization or in your family, is as a leader, your main job basically is to protect the family, right? I was telling that to a few people were talking about movies last night, and I was talking about Planet of the Apes, right? So if you watch the Planet of the Apes series, right, the chief monkey there, or chimpanzee, is Caesar, right? And Caesar is a key leader, a great leader for basically the nation, because his whole thing is about protecting all the apes, right? And so, we could learn a little bit from that in terms of leadership for our club. It's not really about, running the meeting and having a tight agenda. It's about really creating an environment where people feel like there's a little spirit there. There's already ohana there. Because for us in Hawaii, that's baked into our culture. Okay, so servant leadership, and you guys are familiar with this term, servant leadership. So in servant leadership, it's not about command and control. Servant leadership is about trust and inspire, where you're able to get the trust of the people, that you lead and inspire them to do great things together, right? So that's what servant leadership, like a low spirit, it's focused on mutual benefit for everybody. So Rotary developed these strategic priorities, and we have had these around for a while, right? Increase impact, expand reach, enhance participant engagement, increase ability to adapt. So what do those mean, and how do we translate those into terms in which we can use to create action plans for ourselves? Okay, so increase impact. To increase impact, that's really kuleana. That's really responsibility, right? So making impact is really about taking responsibility. I have a friend of mine whose son, after college, he went around the world surfing, right? He saved up all his money, he went to all these places. And so when I saw him when he came back, I said, "Hey, how was your trip?" He goes, "Man, it was awesome. But I saw that there was just garbage in the water everywhere around the world." And so he came back because he wanted to make an impact. He started Sustainable Coastlines Hawaii, Jason Picaro. And so, he understood that if you want to make an impact, it's about taking responsibility. And that's why, like, Hawaii is one of the most environmentally conscious states in the entire nation, simply because us here locally, culturally, where we feel a kuleana responsibility for our water, for our air, for our environment, for treating people well. Okay, so increased impact is really about responsibility. So expanding reach. So I don't know if you're familiar with this word pilina, but the Hawaiian word pilina is about connection. It is about believing that all things are really connected, right? And if you have that sense, if you have that sort of cultural belief baked into whatever you're doing, then it automatically translates to the fact that, okay, we have relationships now. If we're connected to people, then there's relationships out there. So if we want to, grow our membership, it's about creating relationships and really engaging those relationships and growing those relationships, because people won't come into Rotary and they won't stay in Rotary unless relationships are easy to make and they're easy to maintain long term. Okay, so our ability to adapt is really, really about being lifetime learners. And one of the things that I notice about Rotarians, they're lifetime learners. They're always learning something. Like, you guys spent your Saturday today, right, coming on this to learn something about leadership. So that just case in point right here. You're willing to do this. And we have a learning center that allows people to take, you can take over 1,500 different courses there in 10 different languages, right? And it's really our ability to adapt is really our commitment to constantly be learning. So Hawaiians call that kupu mau, right? So kupu is growing, right? And mau means always, forever, right? So our ability to learn is a key piece. And so when you're creating like action for your club to do stuff, right? It's really about what kinds of things can we learn together as a group, because that's kind of one of the key elements of Rotarians here, especially in District 5000. Okay, and then the last one is increasing participant engagement. So the other thing that's really baked into us as human beings is that we're social beings, right? And we need each other to accomplish things. Nobody accomplishes anything great by themselves. And so culturally, that's baked into us too. This whole concept of Lau Lima, which is, Lau is many and Lima is hands, so many hands, right? For us to work together, that's also baked into us culturally. So it's not like, we have to convince people that doing something good is great. We already know that. That's kind of the sense that we feel when we help somebody. We help somebody that's in need, or we do something good that helps to benefit our community. Okay, so that's kind of like the cultural and Rotary overview. But every club has challenges, right? And part of it is really a lot of our clubs don't have sustainable infrastructure within their clubs, right? So there's things about their club, and I'm going to go over them right now in the next slide, that make it tough for the club to sustain itself. So I work in infrastructure, and so what I know is that whatever infrastructure you have in your life, that dictates the quality of life you have, right? So for us, we have running water, electricity, we got cable, we have sewage, all of that. That gives us a quality of life that they may not have that same quality in like Nigeria or somewhere where they don't have all that infrastructure there to support them. Same thing with Rotary clubs. Okay, here's just sort of a short list of stuff that you need to help develop that in your club. Is like, a board that's engaged, a strategic plan. And we're actually going to move away from strategic and really call it action plans. You need a reliable place to meet. You got to have an active calendar so your club can look forward to stuff. You have to have a regular communication so that everybody can has the opportunity to be on the same page. This core group of people that I was talking about, this has to be an inclusive group that wants to bring everybody into the club and get that circle of safety I was talking about. And then you got to have systems and processes like, how do you onboard a new member, right? How do you welcome a visitor in there? How do you run your meetings and your board meetings and club meetings? And then leadership line is the other one. This is where everybody's super challenged, is developing new leadership. Well, you can't really develop new leadership unless you have infrastructure in your club that supports your leadership, right? That can come and help to provide all of these things. Because otherwise, I mean, why would anybody want to be leader of something that has no infrastructure to support them? Okay, so making people feel like they belong. That's actually the number one goal that Rotary is trying to achieve in terms of keeping people in the clubs, right? Because, the sad fact is that, we get a huge amount of people who join Rotary and we get a very similar amount leave Rotary every year. And they leave Rotary simply because they don't have this sort of sense that they belong there, right? So one of the things we're going to talk about is how do you make people feel like they belong. Okay, and so then the other thing is that, when you deal with volunteers, right, it doesn't always go well and it's not always that much fun, right? So like, for example, you have a volunteer and then volunteer says, hey, I want to be head of the membership committee. All right, and so it's February already and they haven't done anything yet. So then how are you gonna handle that person? And a lot of it is not so much managing the logistics, it's really managing the people. Okay, so here's some breakout scenarios, and we're going to talk a little bit about them in a second. Okay, so I want you to discuss a couple of things, and I'm going to put you probably just two groups, right? They said the first thing I want you to address is how do we make people feel like they belong? How do we make people feel like they belong in your club? And then the second thing is, what do you do with a volunteer that is not doing their role very well? Okay. All right, I'm going to stop share so I can see all you guys. So I'm just going to split us up into two groups and give you guys a chance to talk about those, and then we'll come back and we'll kind of discuss them more as a group in a second. Okay, now before I do that, does anybody have any questions about what we just went over? No? Okay, good. Now, so here's a little leadership tip, right? Is that when you throw a question out like that, does anybody have any questions? 95% of the time, nobody
Vincent, I felt you caught me. I was writing some notes, but I put something in the chat. Stephanie Uchek, is basically using the four action goals, as you want to call them, and she wants to call them. And I'm very pleased to see that that's being presented here. And but we would be really supporting what she wants to do in her year by just following up with everything you've been saying. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm gonna now there's I'm gonna put you guys into 3 rooms. All right. So the 2 things we're gonna talk about is that in your room is that how do we make people feel like they belong? All right, that's number 1. And the number 2 is how do you handle someone who's a volunteer who's not doing that great of a job. Okay. So I'm going to open these rooms. We're going to give you about 10 minutes to talk about it, and then we're going to come back and talk about this more because this sort of is going to lead us into a few takeaway points we want to make by the end of the hour. Okay? All right. So here you go. I'm going to open up these 3 rooms. We'll see you back in a few minutes. Let me stop the recording. Pause.